Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Hope you guys are doing great. So in my today's video, I'm going to take you through the Q4 FY26 and your full year results of Manorama Industries Limited and the main points from the Concall summary, right? So before we get into these details, so I'll just in short again explain you the business model or what does actually Manorama Industry do, right? So if what they actually do is they sell this cocoa butter equivalent and specialty fats which are normally used in these confectionery products as well as how to say cosmetic companies. So if you look at the whole business model, how does it work, right? So first of all, what they do, they procure this exotic tree bone seeds. Okay, so from India, they get sal, mango, kokum, and maura, and from Africa, they procure shea seeds. And what do they do, right? Once they get these seeds, right, they extract it and they process these seeds in their Birkoni plant. And once it is this is a process. So at the back of it, from these seeds, they manufacture CB, which is cocoa butter equivalent, and exotic specialty fats and butter. So the ones which the final products comes into picture, then they sell it to these companies, where they use it for their confectionery items and for this personal care products and everything. And whatever is the how to say the waste, right? So it becomes like a de-oiled cake. So they normally sell it to these Indian cattle feed industry. So this is how their whole business model, or how the whole production thing works. So let's look into their recent results. So if you look for the Q4 FY26, the revenue grew by 64% to 382 crores, and PAT was up by 41% to 60 crores. So they did not get the operating leverage. We'll look into that. What was the reason later? And if you look for the whole year of the revenue grew by almost 76% to 1,357 crores, and PAT was up by almost 108% to 233 crores. So if you look for the overall year, they definitely got the operating leverage except for the Q4 quarter. And if you look for the whole year, for the Q4 FY26, the margin slightly dipped to around 26, EBITDA margin dipped to around 26.9%, and PAT margin to 15.6% for Q4 FY26. And if you look at their revenue bifurcation, right, what they sell in India as well as what they export. So the domestic revenue was around 43% and export revenue was around 57%. And if you look from their overall growth perspective, the management said that almost volume grew by almost 80 to 90%, and the price factor was around 5 to 10%. And the other important thing, the management which gave the update, right, the working capital cycle, right, has improved to 125 days from 151 compared to the last year, which has reduced the stress on the overall working capital cycle. And if you look at their ROC, even with these the difficult situation which is happening at the back of the war, and the geopolitical issues, they were still able to maintain their return on capital employed at 33%. And so, as I said, right, they did not get the operating leverage and there was slight impact on the profitability. So let's look into those reasons. So what has happened because of these, Indian currency getting devalued and majority of the revenue coming from their export. So they had to do a mark to market provision of around 17 crores in Q4 FY26. And for the whole year, it was around close to around 20 crores. And at the same time, in FY26, what happened? They had set up a lot of subsidiaries outside of India, in Africa, in Latin America, and everything. So obviously, at the back of it, there is an initial setup cost, which includes employee cost, establishment cost, paying all the fees and everything and all the overheads, because of which these were one-time costs which impacted the profitability part. But going forward, management said that it should not happen again, and they'll be able to maintain their margin. And obviously, as you might have seen my other videos, right, where I've spoken about analysts talking to companies and asking about the impact of the war and everything. The same question was asked over here also. So what the management said, they see a near-term impact, but not just for themselves, but for the whole industry. And the main two areas where the cost will increase are related to freight cost and obviously the currency volatility. And the other thing that they said related to Manorama industry, they don't see much impact happening to them. So they don't see any challenges. So which is actually a good sign, right? Because there are a lot of other companies which are getting impacted. Because I mean, if you if someone is following nurturable industries, right, where majority of their export goes to UAE, they have been impacted a lot. So, and in terms of guidance, right, the management said that they'll be able to grow their revenue for close to around 35% next year and going forward also. And in terms of in the 35, around 35 to 40%, 30% of the growth will come from volume, and remaining 5 to 10% will come from this, from the price benefit. And in terms of margin, they don't see any downward pressure, and they're able to will be able to maintain their margins. So the guidance what they're giving is good. Let's see what are they actually doing in order to achieve this guidance, and what is the growth, and what are the things that they're doing, right? So if you look at it, they are trying to first of all increase the amount of value added products that they are trying to add. And at the same time, they have set a vision for FY 2030 where they want to achieve a revenue of around 3,500 crores. If we look at the current revenue, it's almost three times that. So obviously the company has to do all the right things. First of all, improve their current capacity as well as set up new plants. So let's see what they are doing, right? So if we see from that perspective, so their current capacity which they have, right, they're trying to improve that by through debottlenecking. So they have this solvent fractation plant too, where they have increased their capacity by almost 30% from which was earlier 25,000 tons per annum to 32,500 tons per annum through debottlenecking. And at the same time, they have another, solvent fractation plant one, where their current capacity is around 15,000 tons per annum, and they plan to increase that also by around another 30% through debottlenecking. And the management said that they're confident that they'll be able to achieve this, debottlenecking by the within this year also. And this will help them to meet the demands which are currently increasing for specialty fats and butter. And at the same time, what the management is doing, right, they are setting up a new plans to do both backward as well as forward integration. So the management said that this will take another 2 to 3 years, and the capex that they will put for this project is around close to 460 crores. So let's look into this. What are they doing for the forward integration as well as for the backward integration? So for the forward integration, they are, new manufacturing facilities is being set up, which will produce cocoa butter alternatives and a solvent fractation plant, which will have a capacity of around 75,000 tons per annum. Then they will, expand their refinery. And for the backward integration, they are setting up a processing plant in Africa, in a country called Burkina Faso, which will cost them around close to around 120 crores. And one of the most important thing about this is, right, so currently what is happening, the Shia seeds which they get from this country, Burkina Faso, right, they they send it back to India, and then it's imported. So obviously, by the time it gets imported to India and it gets processed, it takes a process, total of 60 days. So obviously the seeds get old and the yield is not that high compared to if it is processed when it is, taken from the tree. So now with this backward integration plant, which they're going to set up in Burkina Faso, they'll be able to process these seeds then and there only, and the yield will also increase. So which is also a good sign. And these new plants, what the management said, right, they most probably will go live at the start of FY28. So let's see how well they do. And the main objective for these plants is like, obviously, they want to diversify their raw material sources, enhance their global competitiveness. And obviously, the plan that they have to achieve 3,500 crores revenue by FY2032, this will sustain that plan. At the same time, what the management said, that in the industry also they're getting a tailwind, because the demand for this cocoa butter alternative, right, or equivalent, is increasing a lot. So the demand is there, and and that is the reason why they are increasing their current capacity as well as setting up these new plants to fulfill those demands. So overall, if we see at the business, right, they are doing all the right things. Currently, their revenue grew by close to almost around 60 to 70%. They are increasing their current capacity for in FY27. Then their new plant will be, will be up and running by FY28. So all the company is doing all the right things to grow. Obviously, now all we have to do is continuously monitor and see that there is no disruption, no delay, because we live in a dynamic world. Things are changing a lot, right? I mean, who knew about this Iran, Israel, and US war? And the whole market has changed, right? So we never know what can happen, right? So let's keep an eye, and I'll definitely keep you guys updated. And if you like the analysis of this company and the whole detail, please do hit like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you, and God bless you.